Now, in the wake of North Korea's record-breaking missile tests, the UN Security Council has been requested to hold an emergency meeting. The United States, supported by Britain and France, has requested a meeting on Thursday. January was the busiest month for North Korea's missile testing. Pyongyang conducted 7 missile tests last month. Last weekend, first time since 2017, North Korea launched its most powerful missile. Breaking a 2018 moratorium, Pyongyang confirmed launching an intermediate-range Hwasong-12 ballistic missile. It is the same weapon it had once threatened to target the U.S. territory of Guam with. The testing has sparked fears that the nuclear-armed state could resume long-range testing. The country has both nuclear and ballistic missile technologies. Since 2006, North Korea has been subjected to UN sanctions in an effort to target funding for Pyongyang's nuclear and ballistic missile programs.
Rebel fighters launch a rocket-propelled grenade at Myanmar army positions. In reply, a thick burst of automatic gunfire forces them back. They're just outside the provincial capital, Loigor, where fighting has been fierce throughout January. But their enemy is much better equipped. The fighters are from the Karenni National Defence Force, the KNDF, a new militia formed after the military coup nearly a year ago. But what had started as a guerrilla campaign is now becoming a full-blown conventional war. The real cost of the fighting is being felt by hundreds of thousands of civilians forced from their homes.
Amnesty International says Israel has built up an array of policies, laws, military coercion and economic and social discrimination that amounts to oppression and domination over Palestinians in the areas it controls. In short, it says, a system of apartheid. The report highlights last year's tensions over threatened displacements of Palestinians from their homes in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of occupied East Jerusalem and the military and communal violence that followed. It sets out a catalogue of instances and techniques whereby Palestinians have been displaced from land in Israel and in the occupied territories. But it goes much further back in Israel's history, analysing basic laws and long-term policies, it says, designed to guarantee a Jewish majority and Jewish control. Israel's government says that is an attempt to paint Israel itself as an inherently racist endeavour.
Calm has returned to Guinea-Bissau, in the words of the president. Hours after heavy gunfire was heard near the government palace, President Umaro Sissoco Embalo assured the nation that the situation was under control, adding that he has begun arresting suspects involved. The president was holding a cabinet meeting at the time of the attack, believed to have been an attempted coup. People were seen fleeing the area, with shops and schools closing their doors and military personnel deployed on the streets. The impoverished West African country has a history of political turmoil. Since gaining independence from Portugal in 1974, Guinea-Bissau has experienced a number of coups or attempted coups.
The United States has said that it is sending fighter jets and guided missile destroyers to assist the United Arab Emirates following a series of missile attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels. This deployment to assist the UAE comes after a phone call between Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. According to the U.S. Defense Department, the guided missile destroyer USS Cole will partner with UAE Navy. Ahead of a port call in Abu Dhabi, the decision to deploy fifth-generation fighter planes is also a clear signal that the U.S. stands with the UAE as a long-standing strategic partner. Other actions include continuing to provide early warning intelligence. The Houthi rebels have launched 3 attacks on UAE this past month.
And on this first day of February, journalists in Mexico are mourning the murder of yet another colleague, the fourth to be killed since the start of this year. Mexico City ranks as one of the most dangerous places in the world for journalists. Reporters are being targeted for exposing corruption at the top. The murders have sparked angry protests, and the government is under pressure to make it safer for journalists to do their job.
Journalist Roberto Toledo was preparing to record an interview when he was shot. He died from his wounds in hospital. The director of the online paper Toledo worked for, Monitor Michoacán, said the team had been receiving death threats for months.
"24 people have died and dozens are missing after heavy rain triggered a landslide in Ecuador. Homes and roads in the country's capital consumed by a torrent of water.
An unstoppable surge of filthy floodwater through the streets of Quito. 3-metre waves of mud collecting vehicles, rubbish bins and people. The landslide sparked by the heaviest rains to hit Ecuador's capital in 2 decades.
We had 75 litres per square metre of rainfall, which obviously we were never able to predict.
Desperate locals joining the rescue effort, while others watched on helpless and terrified.
Federal prisons are under lockdown all across the country. It was prompted by a fight inside a Texas facility. The U.S. Bureau of Prisons says 2 inmates were killed in that clash.
We don't know for sure, Morgan, but there are some reports that this fight involved the violent El Salvadoran gang MS-13, which is present in almost every prison in America. A senior law enforcement official told NBC News the lockdown went into effect at all of the nation's 122 federal prisons to prevent the violence from spreading. It's worth noting that a nationwide lockdown means almost no movement allowed by inmates, and lockdowns put a real strain on the prison workforce because staff has to bring inmates their food and handle other issues that inmates would normally be able to do on their own.
My words upset so many people, which was never my intention.
Whoopi Goldberg apologizing on The View today for saying the Holocaust was not about race.
I regret my comments, as I said, and I stand corrected. I also stand with the Jewish people, as they know and y'all know.
Whoopi caused an uproar Monday discussing a Tennessee school district's controversial ban on Mao's, the Pulitzer Prize-winning graphic novel about the Holocaust.
The Holocaust isn't about race.
Her co-host seemed taken aback.
No, it's not about race.
It's
about
a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man.
Morning.
Most of the Nazis were white people, and most of the people they were attacking were white people. So to me, I'm thinking, how can you say it's about race if you are fighting each other?